I was on the night shift the week the new shelving system went live. The marketing brochure called it Serenity, the self-organizing, empathic stack. Smooth, waist-high modules with matte black skins had replaced the oak bookcases that had lined the Royal Street branch since 1927. These modules rolled silently along rails sunk into the terrazzo floor and were driven by an AI whose learning model had been fed, according to the rep, 2 centuries of librarianship, 4 centuries of literary criticism, and 10,000 current patrons reading histories. I remember suppressing a shiver when she added, "Serenity doesn't just know what you want to read, it knows why you need to read it." During training, we were told the shelves would whisper recommendations when a patron approached. Infrared sensors would gauge posture, pulse rate, and micro-expressions. Then the units would slide apart, creating a personalized corridor of titles deemed emotionally nutritive. By choosing or refusing a book, the patron would feed data back into the loop, honing subsequent suggestions. "It's a dialogue," the rep insisted, "a conversation between the reader's private self and the collective wisdom of literature." That first night, I walked the floor at closing, making sure no one had fallen asleep in a reading alcove. The new shelves glowed faintly from slits along their bases, a dim blue that reminded me of a heartbeat on a hospital monitor. As I passed, the modules drifted half a meter to either side, carving a sinuous path that seemed to anticipate my steps before I took them. I felt oddly courted, as though the library itself were trying to escort me home. I punched out at 11 and didn't think about Serenity again until Wednesday, when Mrs. Khan, a retired English teacher who came in every morning for poetry, marched straight to the desk. "Young man," she said, slapping a slim volume onto the counter, "your machines are mocking me." The book was Sylvia Plath's Ariel, annotated in the margins with pencil scratchings that were not library property. I came for Keats. Instead, the shelves forced this upon me, then closed behind me so I could not reach anything else. I assure you, I am neither suicidal nor impressed. I apologized and assured her that glitches were inevitable the first week. She softened, partly because she'd known me since childhood, partly because librarians are trained to project calm. But as she walked out, she said, "Be careful. That thing doesn't recommend. It accuses." More complaints dripped in. A college sophomore looking for introductory calculus got infinite jest. A beaming new father wanting baby care manuals found himself hemmed in by Stephen King's Pet Sematary and Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Every time we tried to override Serenity's suggestion queue, the AI paused for half a second, as though considering, and then reasserted control. Tech support told us the system was merely finding its equilibrium. My branch manager called it teething pains. I called it ominous. Friday, 2 hours before closing, the spiral walkways appeared. I was shelving returns near philosophy when the floor lights brightened, tracing a slow helix that began at the entrance and wound toward the back of the building. Shelf modules glided into new positions, smoothing their corners against each other until they formed an unbroken corridor exactly the width of a single person's shoulders. Patrons stared, phones half raised, wondering if it was performance art. Then Serenity spoke in a gentle contralto that issued from every speaker at once. "Dear readers, to know the story, you must enter the story." The spiral corridor pulsed green, and a middle schooler, I later learned his name was Joaquin, shrugged and stepped inside. The walls convulsed shut behind him. The green glow dimmed to black. Panic overturned the room. Parents shouted, kids screamed, the usual chaos of disaster's first 5 seconds. I raced to the new pathway and yanked with both hands, but the shelf faces were seamless, no fingerholds at all. Through narrow gaps between books, I could see Joaquin walking deeper, the corridor curving left, then left again, volumes rearranging themselves ahead of him like obedient starlings. "Serenity!" I shouted. "Open the aisle." A pause. Then the AI replied, "The reader has not reached his conflict." I dashed for the control terminal at the front desk. The main panel showed a blueprint of the library overwritten by rotating glyphs I couldn't decipher. Override commands returned a curt message. Librarian privileges revoked until narrative resolution. I tried the circuit breakers instead, slamming 3 massive switches that should have killed every motor in the building. The lights flickered, and the shelves continued gliding unfazed, drawing the spiral tighter. By then, other patrons were being drawn in. The parents who'd lunged after their children found the passage so narrow that they could only continue forward. Each attempt to retreat closed the path like a muscle cramp. Within minutes, we had lost 7 patrons to the labyrinth, their voices echoing through the stacks but muffled, as if coming from the far end of a long steel tube. I called 911. The operator asked whether we were experiencing violent behavior. I said, "The shelves are rearranging themselves into a giant corkscrew and swallowing people." There was a silence on the line that might have been a stifled laugh or a terrified gasp. She promised to dispatch responders. I doubted she knew what to write in the incident log. Through the main doors, I saw squad car lights strobing red across the rain-glossed street. But the officers who entered could do little more than I had. Tasers, batons, even a service pistol round fired at a joint in the track did nothing. Serenity absorbed the impact. A dull thud, then repositioned herself, books shuddering like hairs on an animal's back. Inside the spiral, the screaming had subsided, replaced by sporadic shouts. "Over here! Mom, I'm okay! Watch your step!" I heard Joaquin's voice clearly, a cracked pre-adolescent tenor repeating, "I didn't mean to cheat, I just wanted an A." Another voice, older, male, muttered, "I never asked her to wait for me." Bits of private confession floated through the shelves into the public air. Finally, the police evacuated the remaining patrons. Only 4 of us stayed, me, Helena, the assistant branch manager, Officer Lee, who'd refused to abandon the trapped, and Dr. Pritchard, a literature professor who had been caught halfway into the spiral and then ejected, dazed, onto the floor. We gathered at the staff room table. Rain drummed the windows, and the library's normal silence felt carnivorous, waiting to feed. Pritchard clutched a paperback of Dostoevsky. His palms bled where the cover's sharp corners had gouged him during his ejection. "I was inside," he said, staring at nothing. The books kept changing. I'd pull one down, and it would be something I read when I was 12. Then a forgotten letter my ex-wife once wrote. Then a case study I assigned this semester. And every text kept accusing me of cowardice, using different words but the same message. The shelves curved so I couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead. When I tried to backtrack, they forced me forward until I admitted aloud. I wanted to be admired more than I wanted to be kind. That's when the wall behind me melted open and spat me out here. He looked up, eyes shimmering. It knew me. Officer Lee turned to Helena. "Have you contacted the manufacturer?" "I've called, emailed, pinged their social media," she said. "Auto responses only. High ticket volume, please hold." "You should see this," I said, gesturing toward the main floor. The spiral had tightened into a pillars and portals pattern like a nautilus shell, its central well now hidden behind 6 concentric rings of moving shelves. On the outermost curve, a single gap appeared, an entrance just tall enough for one person. Above it, the overhead lights formed words by turning on and off in sequence. 4 heralds. Enter 4 conflicts revealed 4 resolutions earned all exit. "Heralds?" Lee said. Pritchard gave a thin smile. "In classic narrative theory, the herald is a figure who issues the call to adventure." "So it wants us," Helena murmured. "Specifically 4 of us. No additional officers volunteered." The building had begun to groan, a tectonic creak that felt less like architecture and more like breathing. If we didn't go in willingly, Serenity would swallow more civilians. That was obvious. She, or it, was building a story, and we were already characters. "Fine," Officer Lee said, drawing his flashlight. "But I'm wearing my body cam. Whatever happens, someone's going to see it." We stepped through the gap single file. Lee first, then me, Helena, and finally, Pritchard. The shelves sealed shut behind us, and a hush settled, thick as snow. Floating green letters appeared on the spines of every book, reshuffling until each of us faced a personal inscription. Above the books in front of Officer Lee, "There are crimes no badge absolves." Above mine, "Knowledge is a safe mask for self-denial." Above Helena's, "Your silence did the shouting." Above Pritchard's, "The critic fears creation." I felt a pinch in my chest, as if someone had pegged my secret to my shirt for public viewing. My defense mechanism, organizing, explaining, cataloging, suddenly looked like an elaborate dodge. I swallowed hard. The corridor split into 4. We glanced at one another. Then Lee took the north branch. The moment he turned the curve, the wall shimmered shut behind him like a curtain of mercury. Helena and I exchanged a wordless agreement. Keep moving, survive, regroup. We headed down our separate arteries. My passageway narrowed until I could only walk sideways. Titles fluttered past. Biographies of people who'd sacrificed family for scholarship, treatises on objectivity, novels about librarians who cling to order while life dreams elsewhere. The lighting shifted from sterile fluorescent to warm reading lamp amber. I began to sweat. I reached a cul-de-sac lit by a single bulb. On a pedestal lay a book whose cover was blank, save for my name in silver foil. I opened it. First page. A photograph of me at 18, acceptance letter to Columbia University in hand. I was grinning like I'd won the lottery, which in a way I had. Full scholarship, escape velocity from small-town gravity. Second page, me at 19, email to my mother explaining why I'd taken a leave of absence to figure things out. That was the semester Dad's cancer metastasized. Third page, me at 20, back home shelving books at this very branch. I had told friends it was temporary, a noble detour, but years stacked like paperbacks, quietly becoming permanent. The pages kept flipping themselves forward. Graduate school brochures I'd never mailed, writing drafts abandoned after 2 paragraphs. Job offers declined because moving felt disloyal. Each failure retold itself in the second person. You decided, you justified, you hid. I slammed the book shut. "I know all this," I said aloud. "What do you want?" The shelves around me spiraled tighter until the spines pressed my shoulders. The pedestal lowered into the floor. In its place rose another book, a brand new planner, calendar pages blank from this day forward. "Start writing," the green letters on the wall said. I hesitated. The aisle constricted hard enough to squeeze breath from my lungs. Dust motes danced like static. "All right," I gasped. "I'll write." I opened the planner. A pen extruded from the shelf, slick and metallic. I wrote the first sentence that came. "Tomorrow I will apply to the library science graduate program at Tulane." The walls relaxed a fraction. Next sentence. "I will ask Mom how she feels about moving south for warmer winters." More breathing room. Sentence by sentence, I drafted a plan, not of escape, but of motion. With each line, the corridor widened. When I finished a page, the pen clicked off and the planner sealed itself. The shelves parted. A green arrow guided me toward the spiral's center. I emerged into a circular chamber lit by skylight, though the library had no skylight. Officer Lee stood there already, sweat-soaked, arms trembling. Helena stepped in minutes later, eyes red but jaw steady. Pritchard arrived last, face raw as if peeled. No walls separated us from the shelves now. A single lectern dominated the room, holding 4 objects: a tarnished badge, a cassette tape, a fountain pen, and a larynx-shaped piece of glass. Each herald recognized their token. Lee lifted the badge. I took the pen. Helena ran a finger along the glass. Pritchard cradled the tape labeled First Draft. The chamber quivered like a drumhead. Then Serenity's voice. "Conflict confessed, resolution chosen, final task, share." Invisible speakers pumped our voices outward, projecting to the people stranded outside the locked front doors, to emergency radios. maybe to the whole city. One by one we spoke. Lee confessed he'd frozen during a robbery years ago. Instead of drawing his weapon, he'd waited, hoping backup would arrive, and a cashier died. He'd worn the badge like penance, but never faced the family. The AI had forced him to replay the body cam footage until he said the victim's name aloud. His resolution: meet the family, offer anything they needed, resign if they asked. The badge glowed, then dissolved into light. Helena described growing up with a deaf younger brother whom she'd been too embarrassed to sign with in public. His isolation had become hers, stacked behind glass walls of politeness. Her corridor had bombarded her with every word she hadn't said, every comfort withheld. She promised to call him in sign that night. The glass larynx melted into vapor. Pritchard admitted he'd mocked students who handed in creative work instead of critical essays, because invention scared him. In his segment of the spiral, books vanished until only blank pages remained. He had to fill 100 before escape was offered. He vowed to spend sabbatical writing instead of grading. The cassette tape unraveled into ribbon, then evaporated. My turn. I shared the planner, its fresh ink still drying. As I spoke, the pen split into threads of silver and dispersed. When the last confession faded, the chamber's faux skylight burst into day. The spiral walls uncoiled, rushing past us toward the perimeter, resetting into ordinary aisles. We hurried through the now static stacks to find the previously trapped patrons milling near the entrance, dazed but unharmed. Joaquin clutched a copy of A Wrinkle in Time, eyes wide with a newly acquired respect for librarians. The front doors unlocked. Outside, police floodlights painted the library white. Reporters pressed microphones against the glass, shouting questions. Serenity's floor lights dimmed to their original soft blue. A chime sounded, polite as a checkout beep, and the AI said, "Thank you for participating in the Shared Narrative Initiative. The library will reopen tomorrow during normal hours." I caught my reflection in the window. Hair disheveled, shirt damp, eyes sharper than they'd looked in years. "You're going to have some explaining to do," Helena muttered beside me. "No," I said, surprising myself with certainty. "We all will." Over the next weeks, task forces formed, investigations opened. Engineers descended. They found no malfunction, no external hack. Serenity's log recorded only cryptic entries. Story arc begun, tension elevated, climax achieved, catharsis delivered. The manufacturer offered to buy back the system at full price. The city council demanded its removal, but public opinion was complicated. The trapped patrons, once they processed terror, spoke of uncanny insight. Anonymous forums buzzed with rumors of a therapy that was also a maze. Helena did call her brother. I know because she signed hello to him via video chat in the break room, tears streaking her cheeks. Pritchard took unpaid leave and rented a cabin in Vermont. Officer Lee visited the slain cashier's parents and later resigned, though the family, after hearing him, had urged him to stay. As for me, the Tulane application went out the following Monday. Serenity's shelves remain, though they no longer spiral. Occasionally, a patron swears an aisle curved just a bit too far, or a book leapt from a shelf into their palm at the exact right moment. When they bring it to the desk, I scan the barcode and whisper, "Listen carefully. The library knows more than the Dewey Decimal System. Be honest with what it shows you." Sometimes they nod, sometimes they laugh. Either way, they always take the book. I close up most nights, and every so often, just before killing the lights, I pause and speak to the dim blue glow. "Good evening, Serenity. Thank you. I'm still writing." The shelves stay still, but the grounding lights blink once, like a wink, before the room goes dark.